Hey, Next Levelers, Bob Gibbons with the Next Level Show. Thanks for joining us again. You know, what if your mom hit you up for a loan again? Or your deadbeat brother is calling from the auto dealership? Maybe your son needs money for a startup business, or your daughter's wedding budget just went over the set limit. Where do you turn? Well, today's guest has all the answers. No pressure, Dennis.
None taken here, Bob. Thank you.
So Dennis Cail is the founder, co-founder, and CEO of Zirtue. And Zirtue is a fintech, financial technology company that is solving this problem, or helping to solve this problem, and creating a place for people to go and manage that kind of friends and family type transaction. So we're going to learn a lot more, but in the meantime, go to Zirtue.com, Zirtue.com. Welcome, Dennis.
Thank you, Bob. I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me here.
So I have been involved in some not friends, but family loan situations. My father-in-law and mother-in-law actually loaned me money for my master's degree one semester.
Did you pay it back?
You weren't supposed to ask that, Dennis. Come on now. Of course I did. And what's actually funny is that they made me sign a promissory note, which good for them. They should have done that.
Right.
And I'm glad they did. We have loaned money to another family member, and we also had them sign the same thing. Even if it was interest only or interest free, there was no interest associated, we still have done that. And because we want to make sure that it's sort of documented, that it was clear, but so many people don't do that. So Zirtue, tell me exactly what Zirtue does.
Well, you just named off several use cases for Zirtue, but Zirtue simplifies loans between friends and family, and we automate the repayment process. So before I can make a loan request to Bob, I have to link my bank account to my Zirtue profile, and I say I need $500. I'll pay you back in 5 months. I sign a digital promissory note. When I submit that loan request to Bob, Bob approves that loan, and the funds comes from your account into my account. And
account being my bank account.
Your bank account. So
Okay.
It's all ACH to ACH, and
Okay.
we automate the repayment process. So every month, Zirtue drafts the borrower's bank account to repay you the loan that they borrowed.
So if I'm lending money to a family member or a friend or whatever, I don't have to be the one beating down that person's door trying to collect. You're
Not
doing that
anymore.
for me.
And we do that for you. We take the awkwardness out of the whole process while helping to make sure that the borrower stays accountable for paying you back as well.
Well, bless your heart. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Why has this taken so long for somebody to figure this out?
That I'm not sure of. I mean, and first of all, full disclosure, Zirtue did not invent loans between friends and family, right?
Oh,
So,
okay.
I mean,
Yeah, that's been going on
that's
as
been
long
going
as man
on
has been
as
in
long as
existence.
man has been around. I struggled with this issue with a couple of family members several years ago, and I would loan them money, and I would have very limited success in getting that money back.
Of course.
And so the thought process was there has to be a way to help make people be more accountable, but yet take the awkwardness out of the process for me as the lender or a family member who wants to keep that relationship intact, but also kind of need my money back too, right? So that's sort of what triggered the whole idea several years ago. And then it wasn't until early part of 2018 that my co-founder and I, Michael C., decided to team up and actually launch Zirtue and make it a company and make it a product and go to market. So
Interesting. So where's the name come from?
Zirtue is a play on the word virtue. It is a
Yes.
virtue to pay your bills on time and to repay your family and friends when they're kind enough and good enough to loan you money.
Yeah.
So Zirtue is just that sort of brand that we felt comfortable going to market with.
So it was really just taking that virtue concept and just finding a way to, Dirtue didn't sound right, or
Right.
Gertrude didn't sound
Exactly.
right.
That's right. We didn't want any of those, but Zirtue was more. We felt like we could manage that more better from a brand management perspective, and that it would resonate. Because ultimately, what we really, really want is for Zirtue to become synonymous with the word loan. So if I say Zirtue me $500 or Zirtue me $1,200, that we ultimately want that word Zirtue to mean loan.
So why didn't you come up with a name that had the word loan in it? or some play on family and friends, or something that's sort of, quote, more descriptive of the actual transaction being managed?
Yeah, I mean, and that was a thought, and we certainly looked at options around that. Michael and I did, and we kind of waited and had our own little small internal focus group with friends and family, and kind of looked at a bunch of different names that happened to be available, and Zirtue just gravitated toward the top in terms of what resonated the most with people. And then the other part of that is we're a fintech company, but we're a B2B2C platform. So even though it's very much consumer facing, we're building out an ecosystem behind the scenes, hence our partnership with AT&T that allows people to now borrow money through the Zirtue app to pay their AT&T bills directly through Zirtue. So what that does, it really kind of lubricates the process, the lending and approval process. Because if you're a lender, Bob, and you know that that the money is going to be used for the intended purpose, you're more inclined to approve that loan versus not, and because you know that money's going straight to that vendor versus that person to go drink or party or do whatever they're going to do with it.
So let's come back to the partnership thing in a minute. But I want to hit on the name a little bit more, because I'm always fascinated by names of companies and why people do the name that Exxon, whenever it changed to Exxon from whatever it had been before, et cetera. And it's interesting, how long does it take for a brand to become synonymous with the action? So Xerox, I'm going to go make a Xerox on my Brother copier, on my HP copier, and there's so many other examples of that. I mean, even in Texas, Cokes, we'd like to thank, Pepsi for providing the Cokes.
That's right. That's right.
It's crazy. But, how do you go about making that? Is there something you can do to make that happen? Or is it just sort of adoption over time that's going to do it automatically?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think it's adoption coupled with how well does your product resonate with the marketplace. And then there's actually a lot of intentional serendipity that has to happen before your brand, your name becomes synonymous with, whatever, adjective or, that you want it to be associated with. So for us, we're being very intentional about our branding and our marketing at this stage. And we're basically sending that message out there. So all the things we're doing on digital and social media is around that sort of, Zirtue me $200 or need a Zirtue. So
you're teaching.
Yeah. So there's a lot of education that's going on here. And I think I think that's any product, right? That's sort of first to market the way that we are. There's an education curve that we have to sort of walk with the market on as well.
Actually, that is interesting you say that, because you're right. If I teach you how to use the language associated with my product, that becomes more natural down the line.
That's right.
So, yeah, that does make a lot of sense. And I do see that in other contexts, none of which I can immediately bring to mind. But I have seen that in other situations. So that's smart.
So that's our goal, right? How successful we're going to be at that, we'll find out.
But you're a first of all, you don't have a competition of any kind that I've ever heard of.
No.
So you're creating a new category in a way, or at least the category being how to manage the family. The family and friends loan has been around forever, but nobody's been there to sort of manage that and lubricate that, as you said.
Right.
And so I can see where you're sort of on your own right now. So a lot of times the first available solution to something then becomes synonymous with the activity.
If you get it right.
If you get it right, exactly. Yeah, because Xerox, were they the first copier company?
No.
I have no idea.
No.
So
and actually, Lyft, I believe, came before Uber, right?
Yes.
But yet, the Uber seems to be more synonymous than Lyft. But I think you sort of have to be very intentional about how you're doing it, because first to market means nothing if you're not the first to scale. And so we're focused on that user growth now and that user experience to drive that and to really help sort of drive the sort of brand message that we want to get out there, that we want to resonate with people. We want to be top of mind for people when they think about lending money between friends and family. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and you guys are fairly new. You just launched 1st of 2019, didn't you?
That's correct. So we launched in the App Store and Google Play, first of the year, and we've had some great traction so far. So we've seen some very impressive growth rates. We're growing 1.25% daily. We're up to over 13,000 registered users.
Nice.
Over 60,000 downloads. And if we continue on this trend, we'll hit 100,000 users by the end of the year, which will be about 4 months ahead of our target.
So
schedule.
60,000 downloads and 13,000 users. So a lot of people have downloaded it, looked at it, but haven't actually implemented it. Are those 13,000 people that are, quote, users, have they actually made a transaction, a loan or
No,
borrowed?
not all of them have made.
They've registered.
Yeah, but they've all registered, and most of them have linked their bank accounts as well. And so,
Wow.
But the key about this is because we're a fintech company, we have to follow all the AML, KYC laws in terms of anti-money laundering, know your customer. So we have to verify that everyone on our platform is who they say they are to protect the integrity of the platform. So these people are putting in the last four of their social, their date of birth, their address. So this is very personal information that you need in order to register, which says to us that there's strong intent here.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. And I have no idea what those acronyms you just used represent, but I'll trust you that they're really important.
They are important in the fintech space. They are.
Interesting. Okay. So we only have about 30 seconds left, but
Sure.
So 60,000 downloads. How do you encourage the 13,000 to actually start making a transaction?
User engagement, in-app notifications, push notifications, text messaging. We're basically saying, hey, thank you for registering. Now let's get your first loan process. We're going to be rolling out some promo codes here over the next couple of weeks where Zirtue will waive its service fee. So we fully expect people to take advantage of that as well. So
Interesting.
It's really about user engagement.
That's cool. All right, we're going to take a quick break. Be right back.
All right, thanks.
Hey, welcome back, friends. We are here talking to Dennis Cail of Zirtue. Check him out, zirtue.com, Zirtue. So, Dennis, what qualified you to be an entrepreneur, starting out your own company? Have you done this before?
I've done it a few times before, Bob.
Really?
And to answer your first question, I don't think anything qualifies anyone to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, it's kind of a throwaway question, isn't it?
It really is. I think you have to you have to get used to failure on a certain level and get comfortable with that, and in spite of that, continue to say, I'm still going to do this, and I believe I can still be successful. Right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the overall spirit of an entrepreneur. And I've had it since I was 10 years old when I had my first lawn care company.
Oh, yeah.
I really just started walking around the neighborhood with my parents' lawnmower, knocking on doors, asking people who had high grass if they wanted their yards cut. And most times they said yes. And they asked me how much. I say 10 for the front, 10 for the back. And before I knew it, during that summer, I had a few dozen customers that I couldn't cut. And so I started recruiting my friends in the neighborhood, say, bring your parents' lawnmower and I'll give you half because they're my customer. So you get half and I get half. And they loved it. And their parents loved me. They said, you should hang out with that Dennis guy more. So it's always been part of my DNA, I believe. But
that's the number one thing people tell us when we ask them, what's the first thing you created or started or what did you do as a kid? Lawn mowing is by far the number one. And I'm happy to say, not just with the guys.
Really?
We even had a woman tell us that one time, which I wasn't expecting. So that was cool.
I'll tell you another thing. When I was 16, a summer job was selling Kirby vacuum cleaners door to door.
At 16?
Which is the hardest job you can ever do, by the way.
It's got to be a hard one.
I wouldn't recommend it.
My father-in-law did Fuller Brushes. I mean, Fuller Brushes is legendary from way back. And he's not a sales guy. He didn't enjoy it, but I guess he did okay with it, although he didn't keep doing it for long.
Yeah.
I wouldn't either. So you had some of those experiences selling stuff door to door, selling your lawn business door to door. Did you start a business previously that you then sold or exited?
So I started my career in the Navy. I'm an old Navy guy, systems engineer, setting up ship-to-shore, ship-to-ship communications.
Okay.
Had a top secret clearance in the Navy as well. And so that's where I really learned how to code and sort of get into all the technical hardware, software components and everything. And learn how to make all this stuff work, right?
Did you go to the Navy before or after college?
Before, and then I went to college.
So you were enlisted?
Yes, I was enlisted. So I did boot camp, the whole nine, and
man.
it was rough, man. I'm telling you.
I grew up on Army post. My dad's a retired lieutenant colonel,
so you know how that goes.
I never had to deal with any of that myself, but yeah, I saw those guys running around the posts whenever I was living on post, and looked like hell.
Yeah, but one of the best things I ever did. I wouldn't do it over, but one of the best things I ever did.
Wait a minute, when you sell off Zirtue for $50 million, you're not going to go back to the Navy?
From your lips to God's ears, but I will not be going back to the Navy. No.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
At some point, they're not going to want you back anyway.
Probably not. I think I'm a little too old for those guys now. They need people they can kind of mold and shape. And
so when you went through the Navy and then when you went to school at SMU in Dallas, what'd you do after that?
Went straight to work for IBM. So building e-commerce platforms, started out there and moved over into their corporate development group, which is their internal M&A private equity organization. And we would look for products and services and that were dormant, work with different lines of business leads to figure out if we needed to package them up and shop them out and sell them to a strategic or a financial buyer. Same thing if we had a buy versus build model internally. If we wanted to get into a new product or market, we would make a decision if we wanted to buy it versus build it. If we decided to buy it, my team would go out and we would work and find companies that we could roll into IBM Global Services. And I did everything from the valuation to the due diligence to actually all the merger integration carve-out work as well.
Interesting.
And so that's sort of how I got my teeth cut on management consulting and the whole M&A space before launching my own boutique M&A advisory firm.
And even better, you got to do it on somebody else's dime.
That's right. That's right.
That's brilliant.
Now, I was the guy handing clients the invoices, so that's what triggered that too, because I looked at the invoices and my bill rate and it's like, wait a minute, I'm getting a fraction of this. So there's something wrong with this picture. So it was a little motivation to kind of step out on my own sooner rather than later as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's cool. I like the background because I've seen several people that have gone through management consulting or consulting of some sort, whether it's Boston Consulting or McKinsey or whatever. And it seems like those people more often than not are sort of set up to start something on their own faster.
Yes.
Because they have access not just to the ideas and the people and the resources, but to the money.
Right.
They know people that have the money.
Right.
That will. So I mean, we had on the show Alto, which is a ride share program launched here in Dallas. They raised $14 million.
And my wife loves that company, by the way.
Oh, do they?
Yeah,
she uses it.
She uses them all the time.
They're awesome. I've used them once and I loved it.
Oh yeah.
But
they're great.
In any case, but they both came from Alex and Will, the founders. They both went through management consulting at BCG and McKinsey.
Makes sense.
And they got that money right from the beginning without having to go through the whole pitching kind of thing.
Yeah, it certainly helps to streamline the process. And if you're with the right firm, they're going to give you the tools you need and the experience you need to sort of go to market on your own. You just have to have the confidence and sort of that spirit to do that. And not a lot of people do. But.
So with Zirtue, did you leverage those relationships to raise money to start Zirtue, or are you just doing it out of your pocket?
Well, we self-funded this thing up until a couple of months ago, Michael and I. And we just started raising money a couple of months ago. We're working on closing out our seed round as we speak. So,
and I read that your seed round is going to be around $1 million.
Around $1 million, that is correct.
And are you raising that in Dallas or outside?
All in Dallas and all in Texas. We really want to. One of my personal passions is we really want to make this a Texas-born and raised unicorn, if you will, because we can go to Silicon Valley, New York, and other places and get money, but there's too much capital and too much talent here in Texas, specifically Dallas, for us not to be able to raise the money we need and go to market. And so we're doing that. And thankfully, people are responding to that very, very nicely.
Nice.
So we're blessed for that.
So are you from Dallas originally?
Originally Louisiana, Monroe, Louisiana. But my wife's from Lafayette, but we met here in Dallas. So Dallas is home. I've been here since the mid-'90s. So,
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got here at the beginning of the 80s.
Oh, right.
And,
okay.
So I've been here most of the time since. I had a short L.A. stint and about a 3-year stint down in Austin, which of course I loved.
Oh yeah,
But,
Austin's great. Austin's busting at the seams right now as
it
well.
is. We were down there a few weeks ago, and man, there's no time of day you can drive around that city without having traffic.
Oh yeah,
It's crazy.
one of our lead investors, Capital Factory, is based out of
Yes.
based out of Austin, but they moved here as well, expanded here into Dallas about a year or so ago.
And you office there, don't you?
We office in Capital Factory
So
today.
What does that do for you as a entrepreneur to be at the Capital Factory? What are the benefits?
Well, in addition to the capital that they're putting up and the funding, they're also bringing in the ecosystem that allows us to tap into multiple angel investors, VC investors, corporate partners as well, Fortune 100 companies, and this is good for Zirtue, which is a B2B2C model. So we're taking full advantage of that, and it's been a very good partnership so far.
So when you say funding, so when you office at Capital Factory, are they automatically funding you? I mean,
No, they are very selective.
Yeah, because I thought it was kind of like a menu. You can just go there and get a co-working place if you want to pay for that every month, or you can do their accelerator program, I think. Don't they have one of those?
They have that, and that's their typical model. So the funding piece is very selective. It's not something that they do with everybody, but if they believe in the founders, they believe in the idea, and they believe that you have the team to get this thing where it needs to go, then they'll make the investment. So it's not something that's on the table for everyone. So we've been fortunate that we have their full backing at this stage.
Nice. Well, I've been trying to get the guy that runs that on the show. I haven't had him, hadn't been able to talk to him live, so maybe you can
Was that Josh
hook
or
us up.
Is that Brian or Brian is here in Dallas?
His name.
Josh
no, it's the guy from Austin.
Josh.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that must okay. I couldn't remember off the top of my head who it was, but in any case, so you're at Capital Factory, you're raising money, you're about to close that up. What does that infusion of, and let's just call it $1 million, assuming that's a nice round number. What does that allow you then to do? Are you going to ramp up employees all of a sudden, or?
Well, a couple of things. So it allows us to support our current partnership with AT&T and expand on those partnerships or replicate that with other telecom companies, auto companies, student loan companies, travel companies. So it allows us to start to work on that expansion of our back-end ecosystem. The other thing, it allows us to bring in a few key new hires, a couple of programmers, so I can get out of the coding business. That'd be nice, and a marketing person as well as a data scientist as well. So
nice.
And then the big portion of that is going to be used for user acquisition and growth. So
how long do you think to the $1 million takes you? I mean, what's the run rate? Like 6 months, or is that?
The run runway is about a year. But we're already trending about 4 or 5 months ahead of that in terms of our target metrics, in terms of user growth. So we fully expect to be working on our Series A here within the next 9 months or so.
And Series A is then you just increase that number by 5-10 times?
5 or 10x. And we actually, that will be, a big portion of that will be our geo expansion into Mexico and India. Geography.
Oh, geographic. Okay,
yep,
gotcha.
Yep. So we will leverage that capital to double down on what we're doing currently in the U.S., which this is the only market we're in today.
Right.
And then the Series A funds will be used to expand into Latin America and India.
Yeah, I got to believe this is something that is available or naturally would apply anywhere in the world.
Absolutely. In fact, more so than it does here, because what we're dealing with here in the U.S. is a lot of underbanked people versus the unbanked that you have so many more of when you get outside of the borders here.
Right.
And so Zirtue would essentially become the bank for a lot of people in these other countries that are lending and borrowing money with friends and family. But oh, by the way, now we need a way to go and deploy these funds that we just borrowed and spend that money.
Cool.
Then we can make that process happen.
So your lease is going to expire in the future, and you're trying to figure out how soon should I start working on that? Is it 6 months or a year or 2 years before my lease expiration? Well, there isn't an exact date. This is Bob Gibbons with Riata Commercial Realty, and my clients always meet with me about 2 years before their expiration date, and we create a strategy. and then we review that strategy again a year later. And so we're always working toward what's right for them, not what they think might be an arbitrary date by which they need to figure this out. The keys in determining how much time you need are whether or not you're going to move, whether or not you need to expand, will there need to be construction on wherever you're going to go to, and all those things take more time. So do a strategy meeting a couple of years out with your advisor, and that'll make things a lot more clear. For more information, please go to texastenantrep.com. That's texastenantrep.com. Welcome back to the Next Level Show. This is Bob Gibbons, and I'm talking to Dennis Cail, and he's the co-founder of Zirtue, Zirtue.com. So before the break, we were talking about rolling this out internationally. Do you find that in other cultures, there's a stronger willingness to loan money among family members and friends than there is in the U.S., or have you done that research?
Absolutely, and not just a willingness, but a way of life, right? Here in the U.S., lending and borrowing money with friends and family is somewhat of a taboo, even though we do it. And if you look at the estimates from the Federal Reserve Bank, here in the U.S., friends and family lend and borrow almost $200 billion a year with each other.
Wow.
Okay, and so you get outside of these borders, and that just starts to 3x, 10x, very rapidly, because there's not a bank or lending system or credit card system that just gives credit to any random person off the street the way we do here. And so they're forced to rely on their friends and family, on their communities to sort of live and get things done. And they've been doing that since the beginning of time, really. So now the interesting part about that is, you have, when you get outside of this, you have billions of people that are unbanked, but 85% of them have mobile phones.
Yes.
So, we're Zirtue, 100% mobile. So there's a huge opportunity here from our perspective to not just get people outside of the U.S., the funds, the money that they need when they need it to take care of their family and their communities, but also give them a way to commerce in different ways that they haven't been able to do before. So
when you go into another country, do you just go in there as Zirtue, or do you partner, co-brand? What do you think that'll look like?
We go in as Zirtue with a nuanced business model. So here in the U.S., the funds go from the lender to the borrower. Zirtue doesn't hold any money at any point in time. So we're a facilitator, a platform, and an infrastructure that formalizes the loan process. In the other countries, we would essentially be that bank for those guys because they don't have a bank. So they would have a Zirtue balance. They would have a Zirtue virtual credit card. They would have a Zirtue physical card if they wanted that as well. And we're going to test some of that out here in the U.S. as well, but it's going to be more of a requirement once we get outside of the U.S.
Now, once you go into becoming sort of the bank at that point, that seems like that opens up a whole nother level of competition that you wouldn't have if you didn't become the bank.
Assuming the competition changed their business model to become a loan processing payment platform for friends and family, you're absolutely right. But there are a lot of payment applications out there today, Venmo, Cash App, and other things where you can send someone money and hope and pray you get it back, right? Whereas with Zirtue, we're formalizing that loan process, right?
Yeah, the others aren't doing that.
Right. So
yeah, and I know there's a lot of I listened to a podcast a while back about a company in Mexico where they are finding a way to take a cash society and still buy things online. So, anything you buy online, you can't do it with cash, right?
Right.
So they hooked up with the largest convenience store chain in Mexico, which has 75,000 outlets around the country. And so now somebody can walk into that convenience store, hand them the cash after having ordered it online. But online, when they order something, they say, I'm going to pay this through, whatever the name of that service is. They walk into the convenience store, give them their money. That convenience store clicks the button that says, yes, now it's paid. Now it gets shipped to this person. And it's created this whole opportunity to sort of bridge that gap between the cash society and the online society.
That's exactly right. And that's a very interesting business model that's serving a very specific niche for that specific region. Right. And so I love business models like that are basically solving a big problem, which is what I think Zirtue is doing. I mean, we're solving a huge problem in a huge market.
Yeah. And what was interesting is that company is actually coming to the U.S. now.
Okay.
Because there's still, it's not as big an issue in the U.S., but there's still a large enough population of cash-based people that
Right.
it still creates opportunity.
Oh, it absolutely is. I mean, if you think about one of the main pain points that Zirtue is solving for is predatory lending, right? You know, payday loan lenders in this country last year, American citizens paid over $10 billion in payday loan fees. You know, these are 400% interest loans, right? Which doesn't help the individual, doesn't help the family, doesn't help that community. It's just a repeating vicious cycle. So if we can help solve for some of that by allowing people to get access to money from the people who know them best at a very fair market rate, then we've already solved half the problem, right? So,
yeah, and the predatory lending is a real problem, and yet I also have heard lots of varying opinions on whether that. I mean, I heard again another podcast where they were talking. I want to say it was Freakonomics podcast talking about predatory lending and the cash payday loan type business, and they, if I remember correctly, are saying that they don't actually make nearly as much money as you think they do. And so those fees have to be that high for them to even exist. I'm not sure I bought that.
I don't know. You know, if you believe that, I have some swampland in Louisiana. I want to sell you, make some nice beachfront property.
Exactly.
Too,
Back
right?
to your roots, right?
That's right.
All right. So let's. So you mentioned fees.
Yes.
So you guys make your money by charging a fee on the amount of money that's actually loaned.
That's correct.
So it's 5% according to your website.
Correct.
So if I lend somebody $1,000, then you're going to charge
$50
to whom? To the borrower? Okay, so the borrower actually gets $950.
Right, and look at it, and that's the cost of the loan, right?
Yeah.
If they were to go get a personal loan from a bank, it would be the same thing, or they can go get a 30% credit card or whatever it is, right? And so the 5% service fee that Zirtue charges is really to provide that structure and that automation. You know, so you're not having to go out and do what you had to do, physically go get a promissory note from someone or pay a lawyer to draft it up and things like that. We take care of all that.
And so the borrower pays the 5% to Zirtue, and then the borrower or the lender gets paid a 5% interest.
And that interest that the lender receives is amortized, that's annualized over the life of the loan.
And I was surprised that on your website, it's just a flat 5%. There's no opportunity for saying I'm not going to charge any interest or for charging a higher interest rate.
And there's a couple of reasons for that. And the big reason is all around compliance, right?
Okay.
Because every state has different usury laws where once we get above 7%, we start to lose a couple of states. That
7% is considered usury in some states?
It's a couple out there. I think it was one or two. But we spent a lot of time on lawyers, time and money on
I bet you
lawyers.
did. I'm sorry.
To get to that sweet spot of 5%. And also just from an IRC code perspective, if you're going to give someone a personal loan, the IRS technically requires that you charge them a minimum of 3%. And, now they're not going to come after you unless it goes above a certain amount and you're forced to file a gift tax or something.
Right.
But 5% is really sort of that sweet spot from a compliance standpoint, because what we don't want is someone on the platform giving Bob a $500 loan and charging him a 300% interest rate.
Yes.
Right. So for now, that's fixed just to keep everyone compliant, especially us. And then at some point, once we get to know a little bit more about how users are using the platform, we may switch that up or tweak it. But for now, we're going to keep it simple.
All right. Well, let's go back to the partnerships that you started to talk about earlier with AT&T. So I know in the press that there has been a partnership announced with AT&T. So if somebody is an AT&T customer, tell me how that works.
So if you're an AT&T user, customer, subscriber, and you are borrowing money for the purposes of paying your mobile phone or cable bill, then you can do that through the Zirtue app. So a big reason why certain family members of mine used to borrow money was to specifically pay those type of bills.
Okay.
And whether it be their light bill, their phone bill, whatever it was. And so now, you can borrow that money through the app, and essentially, your AT&T account number gets linked, and then you send the loan request to the lender. And once the lender approves, your friend or family member approves that loan, instead of those funds going to me as the borrower, it goes directly to AT&T, and it credits their AT&T account, which is great for everyone. Great for AT&T, great for the user, great for Zirtue. It's a win-win all around.
So, so it's not just a way for somebody to pay their cable bill. If I have my own money and I don't need the loan and I just want to pay AT&T, it's not really for that.
It's not for that at all. That's not the purpose. It's only if and when you need some help paying those bills. And by the way, people are already doing this offline anyway, right? We're just streamlining that process for both the user as well as AT&T.
So why, and maybe this is something for the future, but why wouldn't you have it where anybody could just pay whatever bill they want that way?
That could be a downstream flywheel for us, but for now we're solving the sort of immediate burning platform problem, right?
Gotcha.
Because, just even if you look at it from not just AT&T's case, but other companies that struggle with accounts receivables and AR, which drives up write-offs and things like that, that is a huge pain point for these companies. And so if Zirtue can help by being an alternative payment method, eat into some of that, risk, then we're doing exactly what we should be doing at this stage. And then later down the road, we can certainly open it up for more just any type of payments. But for now, we want to stay committed to our core business and our core niche.
So pretty much any provider of a consumer service, Rent-A-Center, renting furniture, or you name it, any other cable provider, phone provider,
prime candidates for Zirtue.
Anything.
Yeah, student loans.
Walmart.
Yeah, Walmart.
Groceries. Kroger.
Right. Anyone, if you look at the student loan market, if you look at the auto market, which I think there's some number that says 1 in 3 Americans are 3 months behind on their car payments or something like that. It's some large number. But yeah, so these are real problems that people are facing. And so if there's a way for friends and family to help them, get a hand up versus a handout, Zirtue is the perfect platform for that.
So when you described it as a B2B to C, that's that triangle that you're talking about.
That's
so
exactly
you
right.
You have a relationship with AT&T.
Right.
AT&T has a relationship with the consumer. You and the consumer have a relationship, so as well as the lender. So it's B2B to L to C.
That's right. That's exactly right. I like that.
Let's make it a square instead of a triangle. All right, we're going to take one last break. Be right back.
All right.
Welcome back to the Next Level Show. We're talking to Dennis Cail at Zirtue. Check him out online, zirtue.com, Zirtue. So the one thing we haven't touched on yet, Dennis, is the size of the loans that people can take out in this platform. Can I get $1 million? Can I get $5? What's my range?
Your range is anywhere between $20 and $10,000. We cap it at $10,000.
$20, really?
$20.
Dang,
Yes.
That's so small.
It is small.
Why bother? Almost.
Well, 2 things. You'd be surprised at the type of loans and things that people struggle with. What seems small to us is a lifeline for others, right? So for us, it's really about, access. And if you go back to what Zirtue is really all about, we're really about creating a financially inclusive world by digitizing and mobilizing loans between friends and family. Mm-hmm. So how we operate, how we build our platform, how that workflow, flows is really critical to the user experience, but not just, the users who can afford, $100 plus, but also our micro loan requirement users who may say, I don't need $100.
Right.
I need $20 or $30. And by the way, that's going to really, help me solve a real problem that I'm having now. So we didn't want to exclude anyone.
No, I think that's a cool idea. And it's certainly when you go internationally, that number may even go lower.
That's right.
In some situations. I know the microloan industry, so to speak, in other countries is very successful.
Absolutely.
And it's also interesting. I've read in many places, Africa particularly, but even in South America and India, I believe, they are far more successful giving microloans to women than to men.
Absolutely.
Because the men are going to go blow it on hookers and beer, or booze, and
Right.
the women are actually going to do something to feed the family.
They will.
And
they
sadly,
do.
it's true.
Yeah, it is.
So,
But the numbers don't lie.
yeah.
So, you have to follow the data.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. So how do you market this service? I mean, it's an app.
Right.
So I have to have it on my phone. I can't do this on my desktop on my computer, right?
That's correct. 100% mobile.
Okay, 100%
today.
mobile. So how do you get the word out?
Digital marketing. So we use keywords in the App Store. So you go to Apple, you go to App Store, you type in loan app, borrow money, Zirtue comes up at some point.
All right. I feel like a total idiot now because you just said keywords in the App Store. It never occurred to me that you could buy keywords or advertise it in the App Store.
Absolutely.
And of course, why not?
Well, it would be hard to operate if you didn't have that. That's an app.
I'm a
right?
sad, pathetic entrepreneur.
That's okay. That's okay. So now you can actually go out there and you can set your own keywords. So
gotta get me an app.
For your app, right? You got to get an app there, Bob. And then in addition to that, we use Facebook, Instagram, Google. We're getting some really good results there and some really good conversion rates. We're seeing install conversion rates as low as $2. We're seeing registration conversion rates as low as $10. So, and the average fintech company is paying $50+ per user acquisition.
Now, is that because you don't have any competition? You think?
I believe it is. Now that's speculation, but
yeah.
We believe because there's no other product or tool out there on the market today that does what Zirtue does.
But I mean, your competition really is somebody who's already loaning among family and friends and just not using Zirtue.
Or someone who's been reluctant to loan to friends and family until there's been a Zirtue, right? So, yeah, you're absolutely right.
And I got to believe, your competition is going to be the payday loans to some extent, other things. But, if somebody can go to a friends and family and get a loan and avoid that predatory lender situation, you think they're already doing it, and they just don't know about Zirtue yet.
Exactly.
So it's more of an awareness thing, isn't it?
It really is. How do we get out in front of the people that are actively doing this today so that they can become active Zirtue users, and then they, So the interesting thing about Zirtue as well is we have a very interesting network effect. So the average user on our platform invites 2 new users today. Okay.
Wow.
So you can't get that network effect with Uber or these other platforms. If I take an Uber now, it doesn't mean Bob and a few other people are going to go take Uber. Mm-hmm. It doesn't work that way. Yeah. So our growth and the potential for us to sort of accelerate this hockey stick that we're starting to see here is really baked into how the app is designed organically to start to see a lot of that organic growth start to push our traction here.
So do you think if you were to open it up to where people can charge whatever interest rate they want, that it would all of a sudden open it up to just businesses, somebody that says, hey, I just want to lend to people as long as I can get this interest rate?
We don't know that. I don't have the answer to that question, to be honest with you, Bob. We're going to let the data tell us that because right now users have not said, hey, this would be really nice. And by the way, we're tracking. Our users are telling us kind of what we should do, what we should tweak about the app.
Sure.
And we have not seen anyone say, hey, I have a problem with this 5%. Can I just not charge or can I charge more? Now, if and when we do, we'll start to capture that. And once we hear it from about 10, 12 people, it becomes a theme. And then that tells us, well, we should probably put something in place too.
Yeah, 5% requires that somebody have another motive to do this.
That's right.
Nobody's going to loan money to somebody for 5%, unless they're buying a house or something. But just to another individual on a quote signature loan with no collateral. Nobody's going to do that as a business. You'd fail in a hurry, I would think. But anyway, so
you're absolutely right. And keep in mind, these are all about relationships. So most people don't want to take advantage of their friends and family. They just want to help them out, right?
Most people. So what's the biggest challenge, frustration of growing this?
I have a huge bias toward action, so I don't think there's any value in delay. So there's always an anxiety that I think most entrepreneurs have. They want to sort of be at the end result sooner rather than later. But there's a lot of work that goes into that, and you learn a lot along the way. So, we're learning that as a fintech platform, you become a target for like scam and fraud and things like that. So we have to proactively put in all these checks and balances and tools and systems to stop that at the door, right? So
yeah, I mean that's got to be a big concern.
oh yeah.
You know, so how do you deal with fraud and security? I mean, is there? I'm kind of ignorant when it comes to the technological aspects of that, but
Sure. A lot of that is getting to know how users are using our platform, are active and legitimate users versus the people who are essentially bad actors, if you will. And we have tools in place too that sort of flag people. We have partners that we partner up with that have their own blacklist of sort of fraudulent phone numbers, accounts, emails, and things like that. And so we're leveraging all the tools available and all the resources available, but we're also enhancing our own internal algorithm to become smarter over time, because people are going to use our platform slightly different than they're going to use another fintech type of application. So there's some things that are going to be unique to Zirtue that we're going to be that we're putting a proprietary algorithms in place for.
Now, whenever you, if somebody uses a mobile phone platform versus a computer, you know, my laptop, whatever, is using it on the phone any more safe than doing it on a computer, just by the nature of the platform?
Two things. So Zirtue you can only use on your phone.
Right.
But to your question, I don't think either platform is more safe or less safe than the others. It's really about what steps are we taking to protect the integrity of our platform and make sure that every user on our platform is who they say they are. So someone can't pretend to be Dennis asking Bob for a $1,200 loan, right? That's what keeps me up at night. That's what's top of mind for me. That's the piece that I say, you know what, we're going to keep our finger on the pulse of this and make sure that we proactively stop that at the door versus, you know, dealing with it after the fact.
Now, I read that whenever you started creating this, and you know, you said you're a coder, so you're
Right.
building your interface, you're building your app, et cetera. But instead of creating it 100% from scratch, you partnered with some other folks for at least one or two other services. So how did you decide which ones to do and which ones not?
I think it came down to timing and when we wanted to go to market with Zirtue. So instead of Zirtue building out the back end sort of payment facilitation process, we partnered up with Dwala. We partnered up with Plaid, who has all of those relationships with the different banks and also has those endpoints that we can tap into that we do today to verify account balances, to make sure that this is your actual account and not someone else's account that you're linking to your Zirtue profile. So there's some really key strategic partnerships that helped us go to market in 7 months versus 2 years, right? So it expedited the whole development process because we were able to tap into their API versus building that functionality in-house.
And they probably knew some things that you didn't know.
That's right.
Since they've already been down that road to some extent.
That's right. And we continue to leverage that knowledge today, right? Because to deal with this fraud issue in the marketplace, it's going to take everyone, right? It's not going to, I mean, Zirtue is not going to solve this problem. So we all have to feed off of each other.
So I wanted to get to one thing, and we've only got like a minute left, but AI and blockchain, how does that impact you, if at all?
It impacts us from an opportunity standpoint, right? So at some point, and we're looking at this now, and we've already started testing this in our systems, but we will enable smart contracts within Zirtue that allows people, the blockchain smart contracts that allows people to digitize that process, and then you can actually send those funds through to a bank account or a Bitcoin account or whatever it is. You know, so we're going to be expanding the options contractually as well as financially. So for us, it offers up an interesting opportunity
Yeah, I mean, it seems like everything's going to be touched by blockchain and AI at some point.
At some point,
whether you know it or not.
That's right.
I know it's happening in the commercial real estate business already.
Yeah.
Well, Dennis, we're done. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Bob. I really appreciate it.
All right, listeners, go find them at Zirtue.com and check out the show at thenextlevelshow.com, or you can find us on podcasts and YouTube, also at The Next Level Show. See you next week.